How much information can you get from a speck of purple pigment, no bigger than the diameter of a hair, plucked from an Egyptian portrait that's nearly 2,000 years old? Plenty, according to a new study. Analysis of that speck can teach us about how the pigment was made, what it's made of, and maybe even a little about the people who made it. The study is published in the International Journal of Ceramic Engineering and Science. We're very interested in understanding the meaning and origin of the portraits, and finding ways to connect them and come up with a cultural understanding of why they were even painted in the first place, says materials scientist Darryl Butt, co-author of the study and dean of the College of Mine. Faiyum mummies. The portrait that contained the purple pigment came from an Egyptian mummy, but it doesn't look the same as what you might initially think of as a mummy, not like the golden sarcophagus of Tutankhamen, nor like the sideways-facing paintings on murals and papyri. Not like Boris Karloff, either. The portrait, called Portrait of a Bearded Man, comes from the 2nd century when Egypt was a Roman province, hence the portraits are more lifelike and less hieroglyphic-like than Egyptian art of previous eras. Most of these portraits come from a region called Faiyum, and around 100 are known to exist. They're painted on wood and were wrapped into the linens that held the mummified body. The portraits were meant to express the likeness of the person, but also their status, either actual or aspirational. That idea of status is actually very important in this case because the man in the portrait we're focusing on is wearing purple marks called clavi on his toga. Since the purple pigment occurred in the clavi, the purple mark on the toga that in ancient Rome indicated senatorial or equestrian rank, it was thought that perhaps we were seeing an augmentation of the sitter's importance in the afterlife, says Glenn Gates of the Walters Art Museum in Baltimore. The color purple, Butt says, is viewed as a symbol of death in some cultures and a symbol of life in others. It was associated with royalty in ancient times, and still is today. Paraphrasing the author Victoria Finlay, Butt says that purple, located at the end of the visible color spectrum, can suggest the end of the known and the beginning of the unknown. So the presence of purple on this particular portrait made us wonder what it was made of and what it meant, Butt says. The color purple stimulates many questions. Lake pigments through a microscope, Gates saw that the pigment looked like crushed gems, containing particles 10 to 100 times larger than typical paint particles. To answer the question of how it was made, Gates sent a particle of the pigment to Butt and his team for analysis. The particle was only 50 microns in diameter, about the same as a human hair, which made keeping track of it challenging. The particle was shipped to me from Baltimore, sandwiched between two glass slides, Butt says, and because it had moved approximately a millimeter during transit, it took us 2 days to find it. In order to move the particle to a specimen holder, the team used an eyelash with a tiny quantity. The process of analyzing something like this is a bit like doing surgery on a flea. With that particle, as small as it was, the researchers could machine even smaller samples using a focused ion beam and analyze those samples for their elemental composition. What did they find? To put the results in context, you'll need to know how dyes and pigments are made. Pigments and dyes are not the same things. Please support my channel to grow by pressing subscribe button and the bell icon. We will notify you technological news. Thank you.